Chào mừng quý vị khán giả đến với chương trình Câu chuyện kinh doanh trên kênh truyền hình FBNC. Ngày hôm nay chúng ta sẽ có cuộc trò chuyện với ông Dan Simon, là một trong 12 chuyên gia huấn luyện bán hàng hàng đầu của Mỹ. Hi, Mr. Dan Simon. Thank you for joining us today. First of all, I would like to know about you as well as your professional career, as I know you are among the top 12 sales trainers in US.
Hello, and thank you for being with me on FBNC. I'll tell you how that happened. I collect selling blunders, people's most embarrassing moments selling, stupid mistakes salespeople make, and I use that as a training. So the people that were analyzing the top trainers saw that I had funny stories and people had great experiences and they learned better in that kind of environment.
So you think you are good at sales training or you are good at sales?
Trick question, Many years ago, I had a really, really good year of selling, and in my best month, I made $69,900 US. And at that point, the man that ran the office I was working in said, maybe you need to teach other people how you do that. And that's when I started getting involved in sales training.
So which means that you start your sales training from being a salesperson, right?
You look back on how you've attained your success, and you start to unpack it and figure out what did I do that's different from other people, and then you begin to teach that to the other sales professionals.
So do you have any comment or highlight of all the success that you've achieved, and among them, what makes you feel happiest?
Well, probably three really big things have happened in my career. One is being invited here because sales and marketing executives of Vietnam who invited me in, the gentleman who runs the organization out of Vancouver, Canada, has started to invite me to several chapters around the world of SMEI, Sales and Marketing Executives International. And so that's been a great acknowledgement of my skills to get to speak and train all over the world. I'm also designing the sales training for the largest training organization in the world, which is ASTD.org. And because I'm designing their global sales training program, I get to be at events with people from all kinds of other cultures and countries. And so that's been really exciting for me. And then finally, my body of work is contained in a 600-page encyclopedia called The Ultimate Guide to Sales Training. And that's probably the high point in my career right now to have that book come out this year.
During your sales training, what are the typical challenges that you often encounter?
Here's the biggest problem with sales training, and one of the reasons I'm here today is because I do sales training a little bit differently than other trainers. I believe that it isn't about learning, it's about changing the salespeople's behavior. So they have to do things differently after they get done training, and it's just not new learning that gets packed inside their heads, which they may or may not use. It's about changing behavior. So if training doesn't change behavior, it's not going to succeed.
I know you are also the author of the best-selling book called Sales Autopsy, as well. The book just published called An Ultimate Guide of Sales Training. So can you tell the audiences more about this book?
A gentleman and his boss go to a woman's house to sell her insurance, and when she opens the door, the manager looks down. He's like, oh no, there's a cat in the house, and he's allergic to cats. So they're sitting in her living room speaking with her, and his eyes are starting to run in his nose. He's being bothered by his allergy. And the woman looks at him and says, are you okay? And he doesn't want to insult her, so he says, oh no, it's a summer cold, I'm okay. And she leaves the room, and in walks the cat. And as if knowing who it's tormenting, it jumps on the couch and it sticks its nose in the gentleman's face, and he goes to push it away, and his big university ring hits it on the side of the head, and it drops in his lap. And he looks down and realizes, it's dead. He just killed this woman's cat. And the other salesperson goes, what are you going to do? And he's not sure, so he picks it up and he slides it underneath the couch. And they never tell the woman that they killed her cat. So when I tell that story, people get upset with me sometimes because they love cats.
Right.
But for sales professionals, they have to understand, what do you do when things don't go your way? When you're in conflict or somebody doesn't want to buy from you, do you lash out at it, or do you kind of stuff it inside and learn to just keep moving on and stay calm and centered? So I use stories like that, and it's been a fun way to teach people, and it's memorable. And because of that, some of my stories have been turned into a sales comic book as well.
So how long it took you to write the book?
Wow, Well, both books take me about 6 months. This is my 5th book, and each of them takes me about 6 months. And I basically hide from the world and my family and my wife, and just say, "Leave me alone." And I collect the stories and I turn them into lessons, and you put them into chapters, and then the publisher says, "This is fun. We love it. Let's get it out and see who buys it."
Yeah. Do you think you're gonna have the Vietnamese version of the book, because it seems like a very interesting book?
We actually had a discussion yesterday, and I should be getting introduced to a Vietnamese publisher, because the book is out in Portuguese for Brazil and Turkish, and Chinese and Spanish and several other languages already. So it's just a matter of time before it gets here.
Okay, thank you. Quý vị vừa xem xong phần 1 của chương trình Câu chuyện kinh doanh trên kênh truyền hình FBNC. Chúng ta sẽ quay lại với phần 2 của chương trình trong vòng ít phút nữa. Chào mừng quý vị đến với phần 2 của chương trình Câu chuyện kinh doanh trên kênh truyền hình FBNC với khách mời là ông Dan Simon, một trong 12 chuyên gia huấn luyện bán hàng hàng đầu của Mỹ. Thank you, Mr. Dan Simon, again for joining us. So I know that you just trained in a training course in Vietnam. So what occasion that bring you to Vietnam this time? And do you know anything about Vietnam market?
Well, first of all, I'm here because Sales and Marketing Executives International and their representatives here in Vietnam, SMEI Vietnam, brings me in because they're certifying sales professionals and marketing professionals. So there's some global standards that have put in place, and there's a 800-page book that you have to study, and it shows that you work hard and you believe in your commitment to your profession as a marketing or sales professional. And we have a once-a-year event, and this has been the event for this year. We did secret language of influence training, and we did training on objection handling. What do you do when you get resistance from buyers? And so that's what the whole experience was about, is to help people understand if they're serious about their careers, then they will get certification as sales and marketing professionals.
So what were the attenders of the course?
Well, this audience was interested in probably sales more than marketing, because my training is focused on actual sales. But there were marketing professionals in the room as well. So you have entrepreneurs, sales executives, marketing executives, and sales professionals.
You know that culture always play a big part in the economy. So therefore, how do you apply your experience as well as your theories into the Vietnam market?
That's a good question. What I've done is I've taken a lot of sound psychological practices and built it into existing sales training. So that psychology is based on what we know about human behavior. I'll give you an example. Today, there's a lot of evidence that shows that you have to have some emotional context to a conversation in order to help somebody buy. So people buy emotionally, and then they rationalize their decision in a logical manner. So we start to build in emotional components to the sales training. So that's something new and fresh, but it applies to all cultures. Now, one of the most important things we teach is that salespeople need to know whether somebody loves good things, new things, goals, good ideas, or in contrast, whether they're a problem solver. They like to look at issues that have to be fixed inside of a company, and they have a different way of making decisions. They focus on problems instead of goals and good things. Now, that's true of all cultures. Some cultures just have a different percentage of people that are trying to attain goals and people that are trying to solve problems. So in the training, what we did was we taught everybody, you have to know whether to speak to a person one way if they're goals-oriented and another way if they're problem-solving-oriented. And it's a huge aha moment for salespeople to realize that if I get a little flexible and change how I speak to people, more of them will buy from me.
Have you ever conducted any research on the Vietnamese culture before you came here?
Not before. I'm in the process of doing it now as we start to develop sales training that's culture and country specific.
And do you have any comment on the sales skill of Vietnamese people?
You know, I'm starting to experience that as I go along, and it's the same all over the world. The people that distinguish themselves as sales professionals are hungry to learn. So the people that show up for events like this or go and get sales training or read books or listen to CDs or watch videos, those are the people that are going to rise in their profession. And that's true in Vietnam as well as anywhere else. You can tell the ones that are hungry, and they're the ones that will make more money. So here's one of the things I learned about the Vietnamese people. I studied a lot of the history of the Vietnamese people, and then I got caught up in reading about myths and legends. And so I have to tell you, I'm kind of disappointed that I wasn't born of a dragon and a fairy. I'm just born of two human parents. But I've gotten over that now. Here's why that's relevant to sales training, though, is every culture has their stories. And I'm a professional story collector and a professional storyteller. And so when we gather all these stories up, like at the training program we did, we had people share their most embarrassing moments. So we heard other stories of people's good and bad experiences in sales. So you start to collect stories from other cultures and you realize, okay, here's how I can use stories in sales training. I'll give an example. Let's say you come home one day after school and you tell your parents, Mom, Dad, I figured out what I want to be when I grow up. I want to be a doctor. And your mother says, that's wonderful, dear. Doctors are so well respected. You'll have a nice house. You'll probably get a nice spouse. I'm so happy you've decided to become a doctor. What does your father say on the other hand? What do you think your father would say?
Maybe he agrees as well.
Maybe, but some fathers would be a little bit nervous about their little girl wanting to do something like that because he might say something like, are you sure you want to be in school for so many more years and you want to work with sick people all the time? Do you know how much malpractice insurance costs for doctors? Are you sure you want to be a doctor? So again, we use stories to teach what I described before, people who gravitate towards good ideas, your mother, or people like a father that might say, I see problems existing here. And that's why what we're going to do is look at the Vietnamese culture and figure out how to use stories to build that into sales training.
So you think you're going to have more training courses for Vietnamese people in the future?
Yes, we want to do that. And what really needs to happen, a couple things should happen. The major corporations, the global organizations that sell here need to get on board and say, we want to help people get better at selling. They need to support initiatives like SMEI Vietnam. But the other thing that has to happen, that's starting to happen in the United States, is the colleges and universities are beginning to have sales courses because 60% of the graduates from university in the U.S. go into sales-related jobs, 60%. That's a crazy number, but there's no training for it. So here, it's going to be the same thing. People will want to get in the sales profession, but they won't have any skills. But if the schools get behind that and start to have courses, all of a sudden there'll be internship opportunities, and the big companies will support the schools and the sales classes, and you'll see a lot of impetus going in the direction of getting sales training in Vietnam.
I see. What do you think about your partner in Vietnam, SMEI?
Well, there's some real top-notch sales and marketing executives involved with the organization. And I know because SMEI International is very picky about who they do business with. And to choose some people in Vietnam this past year, it's been a year since they've been partnering, it's a big deal for the organization to pick the people they've chosen. So I'm excited to work with them. We've had several private meetings about developing sales training, about coming back. I expect to be back in another 2 months, maybe at the most, and to bring some other people to do other type of leadership and management training as well.
So what is your expectation in the Vietnam market in the future, in sales and marketing industry?
Oh, in the industry in particular? Well, I think there's always been a battle in big companies between the marketing and the salespeople. So the marketing people tend to say, you're not using our literature or getting leads that we give you and turning them into sales. Right. And the salespeople are always saying things like, you give us all this information and you don't necessarily know what's going on out in the real world, in the field. So what we want to do is get them to come together and at least be friends, maybe not be family as much as just friends, and learn to get along with each other all the time anyway. But sales training, when salespeople take more of the leads that are generated and turn them into business, then the marketing people will be happy. They can say, see, I did a good job finding these leads. And the salespeople will be happy because they make more money and generate revenue for the organization.
So your training is mostly on sales only, not marketing.
Yes, I do a lot of marketing work with entrepreneurs, what we call guerrilla marketing. And I did a really interesting article called The 800-Pound Lie of Guerrilla Marketing. An 800-pound gorilla is an idiom in the United States for the big player, the biggest company, like Microsoft is the 800-pound gorilla in the computer marketplace. And The 800-pound lie is that if you just do good marketing, then people will make money. But the fact of the matter is, if your salespeople aren't trained properly, they can't turn that marketing business into closed business. And so that's why we need to get these people together and get the salespeople trained so the marketing people look like heroes.
Yeah, that's very good information. Thank you. Kính thưa quý vị vừa xem xong phần 2 của chương trình Câu chuyện Kinh doanh. Xin mời quý vị nghỉ giải lao ít phút để chúng ta có thể quay trở lại với phần 3 của chương trình trong vòng ít phút nữa. Chào mừng quý vị quay trở lại với phần 3 của chương trình Câu chuyện Kinh doanh với khách mời là ông Dan Simon, một trong 12 chuyên gia huấn luyện bán hàng hàng đầu của Mỹ. Thank you, Mr. Dan Simon. So, in your own experience, what are the difficulties for a salesman? How to overcome them?
Oh, okay. There are three things that I like to focus on in training because those are the three areas that salespeople struggle with the most. And one of them is they don't know how to handle objections. When they get resistance from buyers or somebody says, oh, this price is too much, they sometimes give up or they get stuck. They don't know what to do. So in the language skills training that we gave them and the objection handling training, we gave them many, many choices of answers so that within a large sales team, everybody can, what we say, find their voice. Different people would have different responses. So you create many responses so that everybody's comfortable with moving past the resistance, past the objection, and continuing on down the path towards the close. So that's a big piece that they struggle with. Another thing that salespeople struggle with is they chase poor prospects. This is the number one problem, actually. So they think that everybody that could buy from them is going to buy from them, and that's just not true. And I learned this a long time ago myself as a young salesperson when I was trying to sell to the FBI, which is the big government organization. And the buyers were so nice to me. And they asked me good questions, and they told me to call them back. And so I lay in bed at night and thought, I'm going to have a big sale. It's a prestigious organization. I'm going to be a big hero inside my organization.
So now it's not true.
Yeah, and then, they didn't buy. They didn't buy. And I didn't realize at the time that I need to find out, do they intend to buy from me early on so I don't spend too much time with them. The thing is they don't set a clear next step. And every sales manager, executive entrepreneur, even marketing people out there will resonate with this as I explain it. When a salesperson gets done talking to somebody, maybe they had a good conversation, and they call them back the next week or send them an email and don't get a response, they get very frustrated. I thought it was going to be a good sale too, but now the person isn't returning my phone calls, they're not replying to me. What's really going on here? Well, if they don't set a clear next step in that first meeting, in every single meeting, that's the most professional way to deal with a buyer. It's respectful and professional. Then they're going to have people hiding behind voicemail and never replying. So if you have a method for teaching salespeople to set a next step, that's a really big deal. That's one thing salespeople struggle with. So we focus on those three things in particular, and then everything else can fall into place. Good questions, debriefing, dealing with buyers after the sale, getting referrals, all that comes after those three big issues.
So could you share with us your experience in order to gain good sales skill? And do you think what are the most crucial characteristics of a salesperson?
Oh, okay. Well, in helping somebody develop good sales skills, there's three ways as well to have a good sales training experience. And one is just to pick one topic like I just described. Let's work on objection handling and only work on that until the salespeople are so good that they can move on and learn something new. The second way is the traditional way of selling. We give everybody all this information at once, all the 10 pieces of the sale all at once, and we hope they remember after 2 or 3 days everything they're supposed to do at every step of the sales process. That doesn't work very well. One way that I've been talking to SMEI Vietnam about is to have the third idea is a year-long or 2-year-long sales training. And the salespeople meet every single week, and they create accountability between their peers, whether they're in the same company or they're just entrepreneurs or different companies. And every week they talk about their issues, what they did well, and they learn lessons at the same time. So that long experience of sticking together is the best way to get people to train sales. Now, you asked about the characteristics of the best salespeople.
Yes.
here's the big one. Salespeople have to learn to work harder.
Right.
Right? Actually, if you make a lot of money, like that month I made a lot of money, the next month I didn't work very hard because I made a lot of money. So it's not they're lazy, but sometimes they're a little bit lazy maybe. But what we want to do is we want to find out how hard every salesperson can work. So I do a program where I go into a company for 1 week. We call it a week of maximum engagement. And we make everybody work harder than they ever worked in their life. So from dawn to dusk, they make as many phone calls or as many meetings as they've ever done. And here's what happens. Let's say a salesperson makes 40 phone calls every day. And that week, they make 60, so they make 20 more phone calls. They realize, hey, I can work a little bit more and make more money, but they're not going to work that hard and burn themselves out. So maybe their calls go down to 45 phone calls a day. Well, that's okay, because now after that week's over with, they make 5 more phone calls every single day more than they've done in the past. So they find out what their capability is in terms of energy, and they work a little bit harder, and the company makes more money. And you didn't do any sales training. You just focus on their physical behavior and got them to work harder. That's a big deal for salespeople.
I see. I once heard people say that if you want to be a good sale, it means that you sell what you have, not sell what the customer wants. So is that true?
You know, good salespeople have to have the guts to tell a buyer that they're unreasonable, or maybe their idea of what the solution is isn't the best idea. And that's where sales gets tricky. Because if I was trying to sell you something, I'm better off coming alongside of you and working together to figure out, can we figure out a solution here together? Or are we going to be antagonists, opposite side of the desk, and you're going to argue with me, and I'm going to argue with you and try and convince you I'm smarter and I know better what you want. So it's kind of a blend of what you described. Sometimes you have to, if people won't change their minds, sometimes you just have to say, thank you, good luck finding your purchase somewhere else. I can't help you. That's okay.
Okay, so right now they say that social network is one of the best channel to sell. What do you think about it?
It's a lead generation opportunity for everybody, but you still have to close the sale. So my opinion, I use Twitter, I use Facebook and LinkedIn a great deal. But from my perspective, let's say you got a tweet from somebody and they said, I have a really good sales trainer in Vietnam, and here's something that she said, she's really smart, you should check this woman out. And in contrast, you saw us on this television show. Who would have more credibility?
Of course, a television show.
Sure. So traditional media is always going to be superior to social network media. And so that's why I would prefer to work in the professional media environment, but still count on social media and get some business that I can on the side. But it's good for the common salesperson and small businesses, social media, you can get the word out there. But in the big world where we're professionals, it's a little bit different.
Yeah, I see. In the future, what is your vision and your, expectation of the sales and marketing industry?
Well, I'm hoping that the marketing people will get alongside the salespeople and say, can you get your people trained better than they've been trained in the past? Because we're trying to bring globally recognized success and practices that come from the U.S. and some other countries to the West and come here and say, let us help you a little bit. And after you learn from us, you have our blessing and you can take over and do this on your own. But let us give you the knowledge we have right now and see what we can do for you quickly and generate a better future for Vietnam. This marketplace is in a good place right now. Vietnam is in very good shape. I'll tell you a funny story that just happened this morning to me. I was in the hotel in the executive lounge, and people were eating breakfast, and a gentleman was Skyping his wife. So he had his computer turned on, and I heard his wife say, honey, I was kind of in a hurry today, so I took the helicopter. And I thought, we have a lot of successful people here. Vietnam's going to be fine.
Kính thưa quý vị, chúng ta vừa trò chuyện với ông Dan Simon, một trong 12 chuyên gia huấn luyện bán hàng hàng đầu của Mỹ. Chương trình Câu chuyện Kinh doanh đến đây xin được kết thúc. Xin hẹn gặp lại quý vị trong những chương trình kế tiếp.